The fall of Assad marks a huge moment in Middle Eastern global politics. Both Israel and Russia, key players in the Syrian conflict, have reacted decisively but with contrasting objectives shaped by their national security priorities and their historic strategies. Israel's response to the collapse of the Assad regime has been immediate and proactive, and they have learned, of course, reflecting a paradigm shift in its military posture. For the first time since 1973, the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, have penetrated deep into Syrian territory, with the 603rd Battalion capturing Tel Hadar, just 20 kilometers from Damascus. And this deployment highlights three key goals. One, neutralizing weapon stockpiles, learning lessons from Libya's post Gaddafi chaos. Israel is preemptively destroying Syrian military assets to prevent their transfer to extreme factions and terrorist organizations who may or may not still be affiliated with Al Qaeda, with ISIS, and so on. The echoes of Operation Focus in 1967 are clear. Israel wants to avert future threats by acting decisively today. And in addition, of course, there is evidence today, the newspapers are talking about a failure to keep under lock and key those ISIS leaders who have been imprisoned by the Syrian regime. The second point, by fortifying positions along the Alpha line, Israel is expanding its defensive buffer, securing the Golan Heights and ensuring that no hostile forces can exploit the power vacuum in southern Syria. And thirdly, signalling deterrence in actions reminiscent of Churchill's 1940 strike on the French fleet, Israel is signaling to regional actors, Arab states, Turkey and Iran, that it will not gamble its security on the goodwill of jihadist factions. Israel's approach is pragmatic, unapologetic, driven by lessons it learnt from the October the 7th event, that complacency leads to catastrophe. The IDF's engineers have found Syrian defences poorly maintained, but the operation's success underscores Israel's adaptability, even in challenging terrain. Russia's response has been markedly different. Russia, as Assad's long-term patron, has been caught off guard by the regime's rapid collapse, and Russian forces concentrated at the Khmeimim airport and the Tartus naval port are now negotiating with HTS for their continued presence in Syria, stark contrast to their earlier dominance. Moscow's objectives are twofold. Firstly, to preserve influence in Syria and therefore in the Mediterranean by retaining its coastal bases. So Russia hopes to secure its strategic foothold in the eastern Mediterranean, a vital counterbalance to NATO, it believes. But the optics of Russian troops fleeing the Khmeimim and Tartus bases reveal a weakened posture. And even today, the newspapers are talking about Russians escaping from the area. Secondly, they want to avoid confrontation. The decision to negotiate rather than confront the HTS rebels reflects Russia's limited capacity as its military is overstretched in Ukraine. The symbolic humiliation of Assad fleeing to Moscow, underscores the fragility of Russian-backed regimes. Despite these setbacks, Moscow is leveraging its pragmatism by cooperating with HTS. It seeks to salvage its own investments while preparing for future negotiations with the West. Of course, Syria has been a place where so many Russian generals, officers, have tested their ability. While both nations, Russia and Israel, share an interest in mitigating the chaos, their approaches diverge sharply. Israel's proactive stance aims to reshape the security environment, whereas Russia's retreat signals a recalibration of priorities. Israel's operations might deter arms proliferation, but risk drawing condemnation, as seen in the UN envoy Geir Pedersen's critique of its buffer zone incursions. Russia's withdrawal, meanwhile, leaves a power vacuum that could embolden extremist groups like ISIS. Israel's decisive actions also project strength and resolve, garnering both criticism and grudging respect, whereas Russia's retreat undermines its image as a global power, with its military failure in Syria echoing its struggles in Ukraine. Israel's success may embolden its partnerships with moderate Sunni regimes wary of jihadist factions, and conversely, Russia's diminished role could open the door for Turkey and Iran to expand their influence. The fall of Assad has forced Israel and Russia into pivotal decisions, reflecting their divergent capabilities and their differing aspirations. Israel's calculated risks underline its commitment to national and regional security, while Russia's retreat illustrates the limits of its power. As the region braces for further instability, these responses offer a stark reminder of the stakes involved in Syria's enduring conflict.